Do you want to know what's happening around the world of sports? Look no further than The Bench with your host, Blaine Owl.
Welcome back to The Bench. It has been a minute since our last episode has aired, and we look forward to getting back into the usual routine for these next 3 weeks, and I hope everyone had a great break. We jump into high school football Week 14 matchups that were this past weekend. Here at Alexander Stadium, we had Division I semifinal between Cincinnati Elder and the Springfield Wildcats. In a tight game all the way up to the end, the Elder Panthers would get the win 31-24. I was on the sideline for this game, and both teams had great speed and were really well coached. It was a fumble punt and an onside kick that turned the tide for the Elder Panthers. The stands were packed, and it was an incredible atmosphere. The other Division I semifinal game included Pickerington Central versus Cleveland Mentor. The Central Tigers would pull this one out 28-21, headed back to state where they were 2 years ago. In Division II state game, we'll have two opponents with offenses that can score in a blink of an eye: Cincinnati LaSalle and Massillon Washington. Division III, Trotwood returns to the state game to take on Mansfield Senior. In Division IV, Newark will take on Clyde. In Division V, Ironton will battle Kirkland. Division VI, the Anna Rockets will face off against New Middletown Springfield. And finally, Division VII will have Marion Local and Lucas. All those games will be played at the Hall of Fame Stadium in Canton. It was rivalry week in college football. Obviously, Ohio State took care of business against Michigan. That was expected. Harbaugh is now 0-5 against Ohio State. Alabama took a close, hard-fought loss to Auburn, 45-48, for sure knocking them out of the playoffs this year. Wisconsin thumps Minnesota 38-17, where they will head to the Big Ten Championship game and have a rematch with the Ohio State Buckeyes. Florida beats Florida State 40-17. Clemson takes care of South Carolina 38-3. And Notre Dame knocks off Stanford 45-24. Next week's game will feature the conference championships. These are always the best games to watch because it just brings an extra level of excitement, knowing more than likely if you win, you have a really good shot at being in that college football playoffs. Here is your top 10 college hoops. Duke sitting at number 1, Louisville at 2, at 3, Michigan State, 4, we have Kansas, Maryland at 5, UNC at 6, Virginia at 7, Gonzaga at 8, Kentucky at 9, and Ohio State rounds out the top 10. Along with this, I did watch Dayton play Kansas at the Maui Invitational Championship game. And let me say, Dayton is extremely good. They are legit. They have a lot of really good players that have returned from previous years. I have this team already in my Elite Eight just from watching them. They have a top 10 draft pick in Obi Toppin, and they have point guards that can drain threes from almost anywhere. Keep your eye out for the Dayton Flyers as they look to bounce into the NCAA tournament. Michigan also knocked off 6th-ranked North Carolina and 8th-ranked Gonzaga in the same week as the Wolverines look to bounce in to the top 10. Our ladies basketball team is 2-0 on the season, heading into a big one this Friday against the Jackets. Also this Friday, our boys will host their first game against the Jackets as we have a doubleheader between the girls and the boys. This should be fun. Both these games will be on the Indian Nation Station's YouTube page live. Please watch the game. Here are some NFL scores from Sunday. The Bengals get their first win of the season over the Jets, 22-6, with starting quarterback Andy Dalton leading the Bengals to that first win. The Chiefs smack the Raiders 40-9. The Browns take another loss to the Steelers, 20-13. And the Dolphins beat the Eagles 37-31. I'm sure we've all seen that trick play that they had where the punter threw it into the kicker. That was a crazy but outstanding play. And finally, Tom Brady and the Pats would battle Deshaun Watson and the Texans. The Texans would defeat Tom and the Patriots 28-22. At this point, we're just going to go ahead and talk about this whole crazy weekend of college football, the upcoming games, but I kind of want to save a couple of that for Friday also. So mainly about this past weekend and who I think should be in the football playoffs, the Heisman race, all that stuff. So obviously this weekend, It was rivalry weekend. There was only really a couple of really key matchups that could have implicated where people ended up. One of those being was Ohio State, because where they were sitting at number 2. Actually, we had 2. If they lost, they were probably not going to make it in, but I wasn't for sure, so I'm glad they won. Ohio State was number 1, pardon me. Alabama, they were sitting at 5. They were the big question mark for a couple of weeks now, and with that loss to Auburn, you can't let them in at that point. With the early loss to LSU in the season, they're without Tua. Things just were not going to work out for Alabama this year. LSU had a game against Texas A&M. They stomped them. They go on to play Georgia in the SEC game. I think Georgia right now, they're still struggling. I know they beat Georgia Tech, whatever it was, something 9 or something. But they have a couple of injuries. Jake Fromm isn't playing as good as I've seen him play. They have their number 1 receivers out the first half of the game because he was throwing full-on punches with the Georgia Tech corner, Pickens, so he's gone. I think LSU is going to win that one, and I think with that second loss, Georgia will be out. And that's going to bring in that sneaky Oklahoma team with that early loss to Kansas State. They will play Baylor in the Pac-12 championship. That should be a great rematch. That comeback that Jalen Hurts mounted last time they played was something I've never seen before. So look for that game. And if that does happen and Ohio State beats Wisconsin, I think that Ohio State's going to have to play Oklahoma, which I don't know how I'm feeling about that right now, because Oklahoma's offense is extremely good and their defense is all right. It's a little better than I think people give it credit for. And Clemson, of course, they'll play an unranked Virginia team. They've played nobody all year. They'll probably sneak in at 3, maybe even 2, depending upon what happens to LSU. And then obviously we have Utah, who's sitting at number 6, having a great season. They'll face off against Oregon in that championship game. And I think that, personally, if Utah wins against Oregon, which I think they can, it's going to take a lot, but I think they can. If they do, why not put them in at top 4? Why put in, if Georgia beats LSU, why put Georgia in with that one loss? I mean, I know Utah has a loss, but they just got off beating Oregon. They've been sitting at number 6 all year. They just thrashed Colorado this weekend. So I think if Utah can win that game, the committee has a serious decision on who's going to get in at that 4 spot. Is it going to be Oklahoma? Is it going to be Utah? Is it going to be Georgia? We don't know what's going on right now with that 4 spot. I do think there is a definite top 3. Ohio State, definitely, LSU, and Clemson. They're the best 3 teams so far in college football, and you got to put them all in. Like I was saying, at the number 4 spot, I think the committee is going to have a heck of a decision to make between Utah, Oklahoma, Georgia, whoever else wants to try to sneak in there. They're going to have to make up their mind. But I do believe there is a definite top 3, the 3 best teams dominating this year: Ohio State, LSU, and Clemson. Almost in that order. But I'm not sure, where Clemson's going to land, because they could fall back to 4 if Oklahoma runs that table and gets in at 3. So that's why I'm glad I'm not on that committee making those decisions where everybody goes and who plays who. I just know that whoever gets in this year is going to be a heck of a college football playoff. Under the Heisman watch, obviously Chase Young, if you watch the game, he did not have a breakout game like he has before against ranked opponents. He didn't even have a sack. I think he did have 1 tackle and a QB pressure, but that's whatever. So I'm dropping him just a little bit. Hopefully he comes back and has a good game in this Big Ten championship against Wisconsin. He had a good game against them last time. Justin Fields and J.K. Dobbins. They had 8 touchdowns combined. Like them or not, they're the best duo in the nation in the backfield. And then we also have quarterback Justin Herbert for Oregon. I think he kind of fell off after that loss, that sudden loss out of nowhere to Arizona State. But I think he's still somewhere around in the mix. And so, yeah. And then obviously at the top of the list, whose Heisman is still to lose, is Joe Burrow. He's having a heck of a season. He's a great kid from Ohio, played at Ohio State. A lot of people don't know that. Transferred to LSU last year, had a good year last year, having a Heisman year this year, has a championship caliber team. He's my Heisman right now. Joey Football. That is right. So with that being said, I'm Blaine Ohl. This has been The Bench. I look forward to seeing you on Wednesday. Have a great day.